Welcome to Take a Wander with Shebs. My guest at this point is photographer Chris Warren. Chris, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on. How are you and where in the world are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on your show, sir. I'm located in Boynton Beach, Florida. That is in South Florida, just basically about 45 minutes north of Miami.
Well, before we come on to what you do really and your career, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
44 years of age. I've been living in Florida for about 30 years, and I'm a professional photographer that mainly focuses on the ocean.
Come on to your career as a photographer. But before we do so, I want to take it back a little bit and get people to understand a little bit about yourself and see how you got into the photography. Was photography always in your mindset, or did you go down a different route first?
First camera, I believe I was about 6 or 7 years old. It was a Fisher Price camera, blue, had a little yellow slider on there. So photography has always been a passion. It's always been in my life. And it's just one of those things I would love to have pursued as a child. But, your parents are always telling you, go to school, get a great job. So I lived in Philadelphia when I was born and raised. And then I came down to Florida in 1996. I went to college down there, went to school for finance. And right before I even graduated, I got into the financial industry. The financial industry was a good job for 20 years. It definitely paid the bills, but there is definitely factors of life where you cannot fully live. You're almost, so to say, handcuffed to the market. You're not realistically living the full weekends that you can, just not enjoying your life to the fullest. Yes, the money was good, but there's so many different factors of life that industry does not let you develop. Photography was always a passion, and I kind of drew it into, I always kind of basically the influence of it. And then in the mornings, even before I went to the office, I would hop into the ocean. So I had to get the sand out of the ears before I went back in the office. And it was just one of those things where it just cleared my brain before I was able to trade the market. It was just a serenity out there. Nothing like seeing the sunrise and just being immersed in Mother Nature. Now, the job that basically paid the bills went away, not went away, but the human aspect got taken out of it. So everything started going electronic. So when I first got into business, it was basically everything was done over the phones. It was, word of mouth. You dealt with a few direct clients. And unfortunately, and fortunately, I guess for some, the larger firms, they brought in these computer systems. We'll call them, they're called ECNs, basically eBay for bonds. I traded the interest rates.
Okay.
So what happened is it just took the personality totally out of the business on my side. Because I dealt with the large institutions, the Merrills, the Wells, the large wirehouses. And they were just starting to facilitate their trades 100% through these platforms where there's just no content. I was just punching numbers. I was almost like an accountant. It was just turned into a boring job.
It sounds like you weren't enjoying it as much. And one thing, you used a language there, which is quite interesting because I've heard it used before. It felt like you were handcuffed whilst you were doing your job. Now, just explain what you mean by that. Was it you didn't have the freedom? Weren't able to travel, weren't able to do your hobbies?
Yes. So it is because, it just felt like you can never leave. We call it the trading desk. We call it the desk. And you felt like you never take vacation because for 15 years I had a partner, and you never kind of want to leave your partner. And usually, honestly, guys in the industry would take a day or two off here and there. If you took a week vacation in my industry, that was huge. I mean, honestly, for 20 years, I could count on one hand how many lunches I went to, actually just sitting down for a lunch. It was like 4 or 5. And out of those 4 or 5, everyone but one was a business meeting. So in other words, basically, honestly, you sat there and just ate your lunch right there in front of your computer while you worked. So it was from, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock at night. And it was just nonstop. It was like 10-hour days, just 100% on, just trading. It was good. Like I said, with the handcuff was, obviously the money was good at times. And then money started to dwindle when everything went to the ECNs, the electronic platforms, because the spread came out. So it just started making it unfun.
the money might be great at first. Are you really enjoying life because it's going by and you're just working and you're living to work, really?
That's the thing. I mean, a wife was always kind of a huge component of me leaving the industry. Obviously, we enjoyed the money. We enjoyed the finer things of life. We did travel. We did a lot of things. But realistically, it all comes down to quality of life, too. Just seeing so many guys' souls that are just completely lost. I
Hmm.
mean, I don't know how many divorces I have seen, because that's when the thing you get into this industry, you're just so focused on making money. And
Hmm.
that's all you think life is about. And that's why I always did the photography in the mornings, where that was my serenity and it was just my Zen zone where I was just able to release before I got into the office. But otherwise, some make it through their whole life, some don't make it out, and some enjoy it for their whole life.
A lot of people will see the financial industry as as I said before, it's a secure job. You develop a great work ethic. One thing I'm sure you've got from the sounds of it is you worked hard.
Yes.
That's one thing that you do get from it. However, as you said, you can be handcuffed. You might not be able to travel as much. You might not be able to do some of your things going out with your wife, taking them out. All that sort of stuff can have an impact. As you just said, they're divorces. That's a lot of divorces you've seen in your time working in the
Oh,
financial
yes.
industry. Now that you've come out of it, anyone listening who might be younger, would you recommend the field in corporate America?
Definitely 100% provides you the security to be able to provide for your future. When you do get old, you won't be able to work. So that is good. But corporate world, that was actually one of the things that my company was a private company. So when we were there, when we started the firm, there was about 6 or 7 guys. We grew to 12 guys, and then we expanded to about 100, 120 different guys on a trading floor. And then as soon as we got that large, a public company bought us out. And that just 100% killed the vibes of the office. It was, I mean, granted, like I said, I mean, we always wore shirt and ties. It was a very, very, very proper, place, but it was definitely a locker room at times. It was definitely, that was the fun part about it. But once it went 100% corporate, it lost its fun. That was probably honestly the last 8 years of the office. And that aspect I did not like.
How did you fall in love with travel then? So where was your early beginnings of falling in love with travel?
I guess we always kind of traveled as a kid. I mean, we lived in Philadelphia. When you wouldn't travel that far, we would go to Florida, Virginia, local states. We're always going down the shore in New Jersey. We did take a couple cruises when I was young, so I got to explore then. And it's just one of those things. I always just also love getting immersed in culture. Just when you go to a different country, a different state, whatever it is, everything is, even if we go from Boynton Beach to Miami, to 45-minute drive, it's a 100% different culture. It's a whole different thing. So even if you just leave your own home and go to a different area, it's just a great experience. So you don't have to travel that far, but now I do like to travel as far as possible.
I'll come on to now how you transitioned away from the corporate environment. So when did you first make that step? How did you initially decide this is it? I'm going to leave it and go into photography full time.
Honestly, I guess my father passed about 3 years ago,
Oh,
and
sorry to
then
hear
we had. Thank you, sir. Thank you. And then unfortunately during COVID, my mom had a really bad stroke, and it just led me to realize that you cannot take you can't take anything with you, and there's got to be more to life to 100% focus on making money. That's all we were doing. It was just there to make money. I served no other purpose. So with the photography, I thought I could bring joy to the world. So I had my backing of my family and my wife that said, "Hey, you got to do this. You're getting recognition for this. You're selling some of your work. You're doing really good." I was dragging my feet for months and months at a time. And then following last December, I remember I wore a shirt when I went into the office that said, "I called in seasick." And I resigned, I think it was December 28th or 29th. And it was just honestly a transition of mine, letting go of chasing a dollar.
The transition itself, what challenges have you faced?
Most of my work comes from selling at events and everything like that. So obviously during the pandemic, they were all shut down. So there was really no place to show your work. So there's different ways you can kind of do that during the pandemic. What you learned is you can actually do live videos, trying to entice people to come through there. Obviously, going through Instagram, the social media is getting out there because I noticed during the pandemic, the social media definitely picked up. So there was definitely pluses and minuses. Unfortunately, I guess the sales were 100%, not a 100% down, but yes, I mean 100% down in the first quite a few months. People weren't sure where they were going to go, what was going on. And I got to say, honestly, as soon as the basically kind of, beginning of this year, end of last year, people start getting out, and it was a fantastic. I had my best first quarter ever. So people are out there definitely divulging themselves in art. I guess because they've been sitting around their house for 2 years, looking at the same pieces in their house, so they wanted to freshen up their house. But also, we have a lot of people moving to South Florida too. So that was a lot of people moved from up north down here during the pandemic, due to, I guess, we had lighter restrictions down here in Florida, and also the great weather. I mean, that's why I never went back to the concrete jungle, as I say, Philadelphia, to live, because South Florida, I mean, we might hit, 50 or maybe once or twice a year, 50 or 50, Fahrenheit high during the day. But on average in the wintertime, we're usually about 70 to 75. So it's beautiful weather.
Type of photography that you do, just explain the specifics that you decide to go into.
I do the ocean photography. And ocean photography, I have a tendency, 90% of my photography is a long exposure. So like I said before, my background was street photography. So we could always capture the essence of the person when they're in a certain scene. Now for ocean photography, I do the long exposures because it accentuates, it brings out the emotion of the ocean and stuff that you can actually not see with the human eye. Because, honestly, everybody's got an iPhone now. So many people have different cameras. But I try to capture the ocean in a different way where a person say, hey, I got snap that picture. Because if you look at my portfolio, you're going to see that doesn't even look real. How did he get that? You know what I'm saying? So when I'm even shooting in a wave, I have the camera and I'm shooting a slow shutter. So imagine, a 5-6 foot wave cresting over you and just trying to hold that camera still to get the oscillation of the wave. And I'll do the same thing on land with a tripod where I'm bringing the flow of the ocean in.
People listening, you're using some technical words there, they might not understand. So for people who are beginners, how tough is it to get into the ocean photography compared to, let's just say, if you were doing street photography?
It is a 100% different animal. And actually, you are swimming around there with animals quite often. 3 weeks ago, I was out there and fins came up and a shark was hanging around me. So I had to get out of the water, go back in the water. So it's just imagining just being in the ocean and try, because I usually try to shoot manual. So basically, manual is basically you're controlling your aperture, how much light you're letting through the lens, and also the speed of the shutter speed. So that allows you to kind of, like I said, I'm shooting a slow shutter. So that's accentuating the motion. So I'm controlling the whole environment when I'm out there. So it's a matter of reading the light and everything. So it all comes into play. It's just every second it's changing. That's why I shoot manual mode, because you're out there and every different minute of the sunrise, you have different light. So you have to control your shutter speed. You have to control your aperture. So that all comes into play.
I'm a very manual person myself. I'm not a massive fan of the automatic. At time and era when I was growing up, everything was all film, as you probably know as well.
Yes.
And timing was really, really important. So my teacher would always say, you've got one shot, so make sure you take it right. Nowadays, it's slightly different with digital camera, and it's changed in some respects. I don't know whether it's, well, obviously anything changing with technology is good, but
right.
Sometimes I think, I don't know, you tell me what you think as well, but I spoke to one photographer last year and they were telling me that for a landscape, they'll take one picture of the skyline, another picture of the actual landmark, and another picture of like the ground itself, and then we'll edit that all in. What's your take on that? Are you a big fan of that?
Film days is like there was no preview. You had no clue if you're getting it. You had to wait, 3, 5, 7 days, whatever it was, to get it developed, and you have no clue. So we do have that advantage now. But I also do practice, even from time to time. I'll go out there and say, hey, I only have 10 shots. You know what I'm saying? That's all I have to have. So that's also another practice, for upcoming photographers, even professional photographers, just go out there and just, even though you got the digital camera, just having your mindset, you're only going to go out there and shoot those 10 shots. But for me, so to say, layering a photo together, that's not me either. I don't have the patience for it. Because, I mean, that's a lot of time in Photoshop. Honestly, I'm not the best person in Photoshop. Honestly, if I don't capture it in the camera, I don't. I guess my ADD kicks in, so to say, and I'm not going to sit there and try to, put this together, put that together, put this. So no, like I said, I try to capture everything 100% in frame.
What we see now, I guess, on the socials, are we seeing are they genuine photos? So if one photographer told me that this picture that you see right now is not the one shot that they took, is everything manipulated, do you think, in some respects?
Well, it's kind of it depends. I mean, because it's still art. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's a form of. I mean, they are meshing photography and the art of what that was their vision, so to say.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, they wanted the to sort of say foreground sharp as the background, so that's why they're laying everything together. For me to honestly do that, I it's I don't have the patience for it. And also, most of my thing is 90 to 95% of it is motion. Mm-hmm. So it could be honestly only kind of captured in one shot, because I can sort of say mask in a bottom layer of a wave. If I had there, it's all one shot. Going back to what they're posting on social media, it's kind of hard because some of the pictures I love that I post, and it could just be just a super serene environment, but it's pretty mellow. Mm-hmm. But then sometimes when you kind of blow out a picture, you throw some saturation in there, you kind of get the colors going all wonky. Next thing you know, you're getting thousands of likes on it. That is what social media is like. And that's where people are getting the most likes and most follows over, is a lot of time the accentuated colors and aspects of the photo.
Photography and post-processing is a completely different field altogether. So you will have someone who doesn't take the photo but can do all the post-processing. That's a different job altogether. As photographers, you and I might be doing both of them at the same time. I'm not a fan of the post-processing as much. I try and do it as little as possible, the very minute, but they are two different jobs. You mentioned about the social media. You would change it up a little bit, and next thing you know, you got thousands of likes. This is how potentially you could get noticed. And you are starting to get noticed because of your photography on your socials, and you're starting to work with various different people. And you've got big trips coming up as well. Was it the socials that got you noticed, or was it through your own website?
Well, it was a social media, because that's what I'm saying. Because once you have, so everybody have a website, but there's nothing going to be drawing that people on a website. So that's the thing. Social media is a large key to a photographer, because that's like spreading your world. It's marketing. It's your brand. That's what you're putting out there. And the other thing I'm trying to do is because before I would honestly just post better pictures and I wouldn't show my face. So now I'm actually trying to show my face a little more, because everybody says, yeah, it's a beautiful picture, but sometimes I'm getting, hey, I never see you behind a lens or anything like that. So I'm trying to get a little more social on social media with showing my face a little.
One of the things you always did was you never took pictures of yourself as a photographer. No one ever. No, seriously. So, and the photographer I spoke to last year said, no one would ever take a picture of themselves. As a photographer, you'd always take what's in front of you. You never take a picture of yourself. Yeah. And you're right. I think now you have to change it up a little bit so people can see you and see what you're doing as well. I think that's a big change in photography. People want to see what you look like.
100%. It kind of gives them some behind the scenes action too. So I'm just taking little selfies of myself, just, phone turn around. Hey, we're on location today here in Delray Beach. We're shooting this sailboat. So, people eat it up. And if you do, so they see that image, it's like, wow, how did you, this is actually with the long exposures, wow. So this was the scene here. And this is what I turned it into through utilizing the features of the camera, using the shutter speed, dragging that and accentuating the draw of the waves and everything.
I mentioned you've got some big trips coming up.
Yes.
Now, you've got one in Antarctica coming up, which is very soon.
Yes.
Tell us how the travel aspect of photography is something that you maybe want to do more and more as time goes on, and taking pictures of oceans around the world. I'm sure that's an aspiration of yours.
Trip I'm really, really excited about is going to be in December. That is going to be Antarctica. That is going to be a 3-week expedition through the islands down there. It's going to be insane. I think I'm going to do a little more um, travel photography. I'm going to start releasing some of my people photography. I'm going to start releasing some of my food photography. And kind of that's going to, I think, going to sort of say, hopefully, kind of break me a little more into the traveling.
Having different portfolios then vital to become a photographer, as you just said, the food, maybe taking pictures of people, safaris potentially.
Yes.
I assume that is something that is an intention of yours now going forward, and your goal going forward in the future.
I'd love, I mean, like I said, even as a child, even though it was just a couple states away or even just a state away when we traveled, just it allows you to be free. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you're not at home, you're not in your environment, your normal environment, and that is one thing 100% I would love to pursue. I've linked up with a nice guy, Mr. Scott Eddy. So we have a couple trips coming up that we're going to be going on. So I'm looking forward to working with him and doing future endeavors with the travel industry.
It's great to see someone who's transitioned smoothly into a different sector. There's many people listening during the pandemic probably would have had those light bulb moments. What advice would you give if people were looking to start off a career in photography? What one thing, or not, maybe not just one thing, what is it that they have to have before they pursue that?
Guts. Because honestly, that it's just guts. Knowing when, because honestly, as a photographer, I'm sure you understand too as well. We always think our portfolio is never good enough.
Mhm.
We always see something that's wrong in a picture. I mean, I have thousands of thousands. I don't know how many drives of pictures. Wife will come up. That's a beautiful picture. I'm like, the world's never going to see that. And that's the one thing I guess as an artist you always want to keep going. Well, that's to make it professional, you have to keep transitioning. Like I said, I was doing the oceans. Now I'm doing travel things. Now I'm doing food. It's always good to have, so to say, an arsenal of things, and just not, so to say, box myself into ocean photography or whatever you're boxed into. Because you get to learn. You get to try different things out there, and when you get out of your comfort zone, it just expands your horizons.
And one advice I would always give to people is always keep an open mind when you go into, if it's photography, if it's anything, videography, travel, if you want to become a writer, or anything artistic, you have to have an open mind. Otherwise, you're not going to potentially get to the level that you may want to get to. You're never satisfied with the piece of work that you're doing. I never come out of it thinking, my goodness, this is amazing. I'm the best. I always think, oh, I did that wrong. Could have done that better. And I think that that's what makes you improve anyway, especially for me. I'm sure it's for you as well, Chris. Do you have a coach, a teacher, having a mentor? Is that a good idea? And do you have one yourself?
Basically, I'm kind of self-taught in photography. I did take a couple classes at the local museums and everything like that, and I had a really good teacher. He owned a couple playhouses up in New York State. So he came from that aspect, basically how to bring emotion into your photography, how to accentuate just one, so to say, aspect and kind of just whatever, even though it was, I remember it was a stupid thing. It was just like, hey, go out there and take pictures of trash. And he's like, Chris, he's like, you're making this trash look so beautiful, it doesn't even look like trash. So that's the thing, going back to getting out of your comfort zone, just always expand your horizon. Just always go out there and just keep pursuing. Now, since I'm linked up with Mr. Scott Eddy, he's definitely being a mentor in the travel industry. He's definitely opening doors. He's definitely showing me the way of the industry. And to have a mentor going through a process does really help it. Because that's the other thing. If you don't have a mentor and you're kind of just going out there blank, it's like, what do I do? How do I sell a picture? How do I start off? a lot of times, even when I personally bought art, I was actually more intrigued with the artist. I wanted the
Mm,
story behind a photo. So now that's what I'm realizing, going back to how we were saying social media, trying to do the behind the scenes. So now I'm realizing how much that integral part that is to implement into your work. I remember I watched a video one time, and it was actually Denzel Washington. It was his commencement speech at University of Pennsylvania, and he said, "Do you want to be on your deathbed using these special gifts that you were given? And on your deathbed, do you want to have a reflection of you not using them?" So I'm like, hey, this was a God-given talent. This was a talent that was given to me. And now that my mom's, almost blind, she's about 80% blind now. It's just, I know she can't see the photos, but just even when I describe them to her, I can see the emotion on her face. She sees it. And if I could just bring, a smile to somebody's face, and I say, if it's a child, if it's a person, whatever it is, if I put a smile on their face, that makes me so happy. Yes, I mean, obviously, I love to make my work, but when I see a person smile and I look at it, that's so rewarding. It's just that's one of the major things rewarding about photography.
if you don't have a story behind your work as an artist, one thing, as I said to you, I did a degree in art. They always say relate it back to the art world or relate it back to the world that you're taking it from, and it's the storytelling. You could literally sell a piece based on your story, and it's really important. I think where you are now, it's a great position. I have a funny feeling in a couple of years' time, I'm not going to be able to get you to sit down with me because you're going to be that busy, which is going to be great to see, which I would love to see going forward. So I'm going to wish you the best of luck. What would you say has been your most transformative travel experience to date?
That's a good question.
I mean, it could be somewhere you could have had a transformative travel experience within the United States. It doesn't have to be abroad.
I think maybe Bali. Um, I guess Bali was a place where the people were fantastic. I remember I can't remember exactly the town we were in, but I know it was northeast in Bali. And we were just going through. We had the same driver, Wyan, and he's actually a personal friend now. We went back to Bali a couple times, and he's just a personal friend. But I remember he took us to this gentleman, and he brought us to this little shack on the beach, and he was actually making sea salt. So he was just actually getting buckets of water, laying out on the just on a surface out there, and after a day or so, this would the water would disperse, and the salt was left. So that's actually that's another one of my favorite pictures too, of the guy carrying the bags of salt. I guess honestly, just the human contact with other cultures.
With these experiences, it changes our perspective in life. And that's what travel for me brings. Hopefully, that's brought something for you as well. With
Oh, 100%. Just seeing how, I guess, I don't know if you want to say how we live here in the US, and then you go to these different countries. Sometimes they don't have to be third world or whatever. And just the respect they have for humans, nature, animals. A lot of that's not seen sometimes at home. And it's great to get out there. And like I said, I mean, unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but sometimes you're in hard places where they're not financially stable, but they have the best hearts, and it's just they welcome you. That is the one thing I guess I could say I love about travel, is just immersing myself in the different cultures and just enjoying the humanity a lot of these places give you.
I know photography is one of your big hobbies. Obviously, now become a profession of yours. Have you got any other hobbies that you can do whilst you've got time?
Well, I'm definitely not a golfer, I'll tell you that. I don't have the patience for that. But I guess, hey, we'll bring it back to the ocean. So I'm actually I'm a 100-ton master captain.
Okay.
So I'm a licensed captain, and that is one of my definitely passions out there. I love being on the water. I love fishing. That was actually one of the actually the most enjoyable experience my dad always had in his life was going out in the ocean fishing. He loved being out there right before the sun rose, just watching the sun break, over the horizon on a boat. And I guess he instilled me in that. So I've been fishing for the last, well, I'm 44, so I guess I've been fishing since I was probably about 3. So last 40 years, I've been fishing, and it's definitely it's a place where I can release and just go out there and enjoy.
Not to mention, you have to take your wife out at times, right, for dinner and stuff.
Oh yes, oh yes. Well, she's well, let's put it this way. I guess well, I'm a pescatarian. The wife is a vegan. So when we were out there fishing, she's honestly cheering for the fish to get away. So, but we do have a cat. Cat's named Ballyhoo, and she does love her fresh fish. So we have to have fish for the cat, so she understands that.
Oh, there you go. Then.
Feel that bad. So cat is so spoiled. He loves tuna. I don't know many cats that literally get ahi tuna 2 times a day. So she is one spoiled cat.
Well, Chris, we've come to the end of our discussion. I want to thank you for coming on, Take a Wander with Shebs. Just before I let you go, tell people where they can find you and how they can follow you.
Thank you so much for having me today. As I said, my name is Christopher Warren. It's at CWARREN Gallery, cwarrengallery.com. And on Instagram, it's the same thing. It's CWARREN Gallery on Instagram.
Chris, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time, and I'll speak to you very soon.
James, thank you so much for your time. I hope you're going to have me back soon.
Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell button to never miss an episode, and follow me on all of my social media platforms. That's it for Take a Wander with Shebs. Hope to see you all soon. Until next time, bye for now.